Hi everyone, so here we are taking a look at Ashes of Singularity. Now, this is a real-time strategy game in the vein of Supreme Commander, Planetary Annihilation and so on. Essentially, it's lots of units and big scale, or at least that's what the developers are promising us. Now, there is a single-player campaign here. There is also skirmishes and multiplayer as well. And its big claim to fame is that this is the first game to make use of DirectX 12 on Windows 10, so we should be expecting some pretty cool technology here. Now, like I say, this game really does push this idea of scale, the idea that you will have thousands of units on screen doing battle with each other, and presumably no major hit to your system performance, or at least that's what we would theoretically think here if you're going to claim thousands of units. Now, this game has been in a kind of early access for a fair few months, and I've played a reasonable amount of the game. Played about 10 hours of skirmish and multiplayer, and I've checked out the single-player campaign that's been released, yesterday. Now, my thoughts here really are that this is not a particularly good strategy game. It lacks depth in kind of key areas. There's not enough unit variety for starters. You have two factions. They're both pretty much the muchness, really. It's really just down to their build queues that changes how the strategy plays and what you're going to build where. At no point did I really feel that I was getting a good mix of units from these two different factions, as it were. The other main issue here really is performance. It's absolutely dire. As you can see from the benchmarks, you will never see 60 frames a second out of this game on traditional hardware that's around today. 970 GPU, 16 gig of RAM, quad-core i7 processor. It's a struggle. Now, I don't know whether this is Nvidia's problem or whether it's Stardock's problem. I'm likely to think here that it's a little bit of both. From what we can tell, Nvidia have not completely provided full support for DirectX 12 through their GPU drivers yet. And so that might still be causing some bottleneck issues there. I think it's ASM that is currently missing. Now, when you kind of look at what this game offers, the game world itself is an interesting concept. Humanity has moved past its physical bodies, they're now post-humans as it were, and they've gone out into the stars until they met resistance from another faction of some sort. Now, that's pretty cool, you know, but where it immediately falls apart, and I am deeply angry with Stardock for releasing the game in this state, is when you actually get into the single-player campaign, there's no narration. So you're being given tasks to do, like move your units here, group these things, and it's just being done with some text dumped onto the screen in a little box. That is beyond pathetic for the cost of this game. What did they spend all their money on? It obviously wasn't actually putting together a really cool single-player campaign that would drive a story forward. It ultimately is some nice little cutscenes interspersed with some real-time strategy elements on a moderately pretty looking map, although I don't find this game world to be particularly high detailed. These texture maps are pretty bland and boring, I have to say. It smacks really of a game that has been pushed out for an arbitrary release date, or where, frankly, money has been skimped on key parts of creating a full package. In my opinion, if you have a great-looking single-player campaign, and then basically you break the immersion when you actually go in-game by having no voiceover for any of the commands or instructions, that's a deal-breaker. I mean, what exactly were they proposing here this game actually is? Is it really just a skirmish game which they've decided, oh god, we're going to have to tack on a single-player campaign here pretty quickly to keep people interested? Certainly it doesn't feel like any time and effort was put into the actual single-player campaign itself, just into some pretty-looking cutscenes and then slapping some maps together with a loose narrative through the gameplay. It doesn't really feel like the time and effort was put in there. Now, the technical side of this game as well. When I've been playing skirmishes, etc., and multiplayer matches, at no point have I actually had a match with thousands of units on screen simultaneously. At most, I've probably managed about 700 on my side, plus whatever the opponent may have had, which I think, because of the speed I was building at, was considerably less than me. Now, the other kind of thing here is when the developers have talked about thousands of units on screen, they've lied a little tiny bit, or should I say maybe massaged the truth. Because a lot of units actually are built once, in the sense that what you do is you might click the build queue to build a unit, and 5 units will pop out. Well, that's a bit interesting. Are we actually dealing with 5 individual units in a cluster, or are we just dealing with a grouped up AI and actually they're just 5 units acting as one? Now, the developers would say each unit has its own individual bit of AI, it's making its own decisions, which is interesting because in skirmish mode, certainly one of the things that I found most annoying is when the AI simply ignores your command to go and attack something and drives off in the opposite direction. So there are certainly some problems here as far as I'm concerned, and this is still there as far as I can tell when I played skirmish modes in the final release. There are problems here with the way the AI seems to handle your commands. Sometimes it works fine, but often it just drives off and does its own thing. And this becomes a bigger and bigger problem the more units you seem to have. So it strikes me that this is not actually working quite as well as intended. I've played a lot of real-time strategy games and I've seen some truly crap AI in my time. This one is bordering on the crap side, I have to say. If you don't have dependability in the commands when you send them to the units and say, go and do this, and they all go driving off in the opposite direction or do their own thing, that's not a strategy game. That's literally just trying to wade through tar of AI. Overall, the game engine is not scaling particularly well. Now, whether we can consider that to be an NVIDIA problem through lack of driver support, or, as I personally think, DirectX 12 is not ready for prime time yet, and realistically I find this game runs an awful lot better using DirectX 11 render path. Certainly there's a good 10 to 15 frames a second more available if you use DirectX 11 here over DirectX 12. I keep coming back to one simple fact with Ashes of Singularity. I haven't had fun playing the game. Now, maybe my expectations going in were ruined by the developers promising something they haven't been able to actually deliver. But at the end of the day, having played games like Planetary Annihilation, a game that really does have thousands of units and huge scale, you kind of look at Ashes of Singularity and you just think to yourself, it's a load of marketing hype. It's probably a load of bollocks, actually. It doesn't do scale very well. That scale comes at huge performance costs when it does get there, if it does. And ultimately, what we have here is a real-time strategy game that lacks depth. And actually, when you're dealing with something that is a strategy game, depth is kind of important. It's what pulls you into the world and what makes you feel like this unit is big and awesome and powerful. I just don't ever get that from this game. It feels so bland and insipid. It's such a disappointment, really, especially considering it is actually quite a high price for such a poorly delivered product at launch. On Steam, it's getting mostly positive reviews. I'm not sure that's going to hold post-release once people get hold of the single-player campaign. There's already talk on the discussion forums of Part 4 of the single-player story being unplayable. Effectively, you can't win because the AI is completely and totally overblown. It stomps you into the ground. Now, that's something that I've noticed. The AI in this game is either so weak that you can steamroll over it in 2 or 3 minutes of unit building and crashing into them, or alternatively, they are so brutally hard, all they do is rush you, rush you, rush you. For my mind, that is not good quality AI. That is basically a fudge.